And the reason I'm a little immobile, I had a little bike accident 3 weeks ago today, so I'm kind of gimpy with my left leg. They wanted me to talk specifically about Gunnison, which sometimes I don't always do, because all the great action really after 1882 was up in the great silver camps to the north, and we'll talk a little bit about those in a moment. But I want to start off first of all by talking briefly about how this area opened up. And the original people in the area were the Ute Indians. And the Ute Indians used this as a summer range. And then when winter came, they left and went to the Uncompahgre Valley to the west, where towns were Montrose and Delta and Ridgeway are today. It was a lot milder out there. I think there are about 2,500 of them in the Gunnison country. And of course they were hunters. And then when the Ute Indians, when white men came into the area and took up ranches and wanted to open up mines, the days of the Ute Indians were numbered. And in 1868 they had a big treaty, and the treaty started the Los Pinos Indian Reservation about 35 miles from here, not far from Cochito Pass. And when that happened, they had a Gunnison cow camp, which was located in 1868 right on the 13th green of the Gunnison River, where the Gunnison and Tamichi rivers come together in an area that the Spanish called Dos Rios, meeting of two rivers. And that's where the cow camp was. And riding into the cow camp on Christmas Day in the year 1872, 4 years later, was a fellow by the name of Alonzo Hartman. And Alonzo Hartman became the head of the cow camp. Now the cow camp was used for the Ute Indians, who are 35 miles away near Cochito Pass. But the cows ran here. And that's where they were butchered, and the Ute Indians, of course, used that meat. A little sidelight for some of the people who are here right now, there's a movement right now to preserve the Hartman Castle. And the Hartman Castle is a beautiful home that was built by Alonzo Hartman around 1900. And it's fantastic. And it sits on the KOA campground. And KOA Dave Taylor is willing to sell it with 4 acres. So right now, Pam Williams, good friend of mine, and Polly O'Brasler, another good friend of mine, have started a nonprofit. And down the line here, we're trying to raise money and get grants to restore the Hartman Castle. A little sidelight to that. In the year 1873, a big mining rush occurred in the San Juan Mountains, and Telluride, Silverton, Ouray, Lake City all opened up. And that was the end for the Ute Indians. Another treaty was signed, Bruno Treaty 1873, moving them out to the western slope and out of the mining area. And then in 1880, they moved out to Utah. And now this area begins to open up. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about a litany now. So the Indians are first. Then come the Spanish. And the Spanish are in this area looking for gold and looking for a way to get a route from their mission stations in Taos and Santa Fe, New Mexico, all the way out to their mission stations in California along a road called the El Camino Real, the Royal Road, which meant that you had 24 mission stations going from San Diego all the way to San Francisco, each one day's ride away. And the old Spanish Trail is going to kind of be part of that a little later on. 170 out of 700 place names in Colorado are Hispanic. So rivers, mountains, towns, Alamosa, Rio Grande del Norte, these are all Spanish terms. And Spain had a big impact on religion and architecture and history in this area. But they never found gold. They hadn't found a lot of gold, like they did in Mexico, so that was it. And no permanent Spanish settlement ever existed in Colorado until they left in 1806. So that's second group that comes in. Third group that comes in are the fur traders. These guys are looking for black gold. The pelt of the beaver sold for $7 a pelt. Now that'd be like $500 or $700 by today's prices.
Wow.
So you trap a couple of beaver before breakfast and you're worth about $2,000. That's why they call it black gold. So in they came, and the great years of the fur trade were 1870 to 1842. When Lewis and Clark and Zebulon Pike returned on their explorations of the Louisiana Purchase in 1806 and 1807, they both said in their report that the mountains were, quote, teeming with beaver. And as a result, every Tom, Dick, and Harry lined up at St. Louis in 1807 to go west to trap the pelt of the beaver. And there were three great areas where the fur trade existed. One jumping off point was St. Louis, Central Rockies fur trade. The other one was Taos, New Mexico, Southwest fur trade. And the other one was in the Northwest, where big English companies like Hudson Bay and Northwest Fur Trading Company operated. So for 35 years, this area was trapped out by these mountain men. And one of the guys who came into the Gunnison country, and it's not called the Gunnison country then because John Gunnison hadn't been here yet, was a man named Ezekiel Williams. And Ezekiel Williams was interviewed in 1823 by the Missouri Gazette. And he said this area was not great for fur trading because, his exact words, the mountains was froze up too much of the year. He knew what we know today. So short season. But if you can imagine people being in here from 1807 to 1842, and then in 1842 it all ended. And it all ended because, number one, the streams in the west had been trapped out. Number two, a guy named Beau Brummel had invented the silk hat in England, and the price of the beaver pelt or the beaver hat fell from $7 to $1. And then thirdly, the mountains had become very dangerous for the fur traders because the fur traders had given Indians diseases that they had never had before, and they died like flies.
Oh.
And they just thought, the Indians thought the fur traders had done this deliberately. Probably not true, but possibly some of it is true. Nobody knows. So that the third year now comes to an end. And now coming in are the explorers. John Gunnison, John C. Fremont, and these guys are looking for a railroad route from St. Louis all the way to California. The Oregon Trail took people out, the California Trail. There are a number of overland trails, but they were long, dangerous, expensive, and you couldn't carry a whole lot of people. So we're looking for a transcontinental railroad route. And in comes John Gunnison and John C. Fremont. Gunnison came through here right about the same day that we're here right now in the year 1853. So 170 years ago, John Gunnison is going right through the Gunnison country. And he hits the Lake Fork Canyon, and he hits the Black Canyon. And he is killed by Ute Indians in October of 1853, not far from a town named for him today, Gunnison, Utah. Not far from Cedar City, southwest part of Utah. In his report written up by John Beckwith the following year, no way we're building a transcontinental railroad through the Gunnison country because there are too many canyons, it is too much snow in the wintertime. It's just not feasible. But the area now opens up a little bit more. People know a little bit more about it. And then in 1860 come the next group of people, and these are the placer miners. Making their way in, individual gold miners heard rumors from the Ute Indians and fur trappers, and they come in and they begin to placer mine or gold pan the streams. Now this is poor man's mining. One guy can do it. You got a gold pan, scoop out a little debris out of a stream bed, gently rotate slightly downhill. Water carries all the light stuff off. What is left in the bottom of the pan are maybe pebbles or rocks, too heavy to go out. And if you're lucky, black sand on the bottom of the gold pan, which is gold, very heavy, and that doesn't float out. So the miners with forceps take the rocks out. And then they get what is in the bottom of the pan, which is always now called pay dirt. The dirt on the bottom of the pan that pays, gold. Now this is what we call free gold. Shot, wire, grain, flour, dust, and nugget. Pure gold. Doesn't need any smelting at all. Put in your saddlebags and ride away. That is the decade of the 1860s. And a lot of notes, my notes, show they're out in White Pine and Snowblind Gulch. They are out on the Crystal River and the head of the Slate River and the East River and Crested Butte. They're all over the place trying to find gold. But as I said, this is poor man's mining, and by 1870, the streams have been panned out. The Indians have become very dangerous. We are way the hell out of the way from any settlement, so it's real tough to get supplies in, and that era comes to an end.